All right, all right, all right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Minding My Mind under the Closing the Gap Broadcast Network. We are so grateful that you are joining us this evening. And on this evening show, we are going to have Sister Chantel, my ride or die sister, who's always really, really, really in the dirt with her sleeves rolled up and with her nails in the dirt, getting us to skinny so that we can have these engaging conversations with regard to how to eat to live and why the most honorable Elijah Muhammad prescribed the foods that he did for us. I want to thank Brother Minister James and the Closing the Gap Broadcast Network for allowing us of the blessing to serve you in the best capacity on this particular platform. And I thank Almighty God Allah for coming to us in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, for raising the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who is giving us the wisdom that we need to share with our family. And you are our family, so that we will be able to help you to stay healthy and alive. Say good evening, Sister Chantel.
Yes, ma'am. Assalamualaikum, everyone.
All praises be to Allah. Sister, thank you so much for being a consistent guest on this platform, because your presence and your spirit is truly a blessing to me and our listeners. Everybody, tonight our discussion is going to be on how to eat to live and fat soluble vitamins. For the next several weeks, we're going to break down the wisdom that's not locked but kind of is in how to eat to live, and why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad prescribed the specific foods that he prescribed in his monumental books, How to Eat to Live, books 1 and 2. This today we're going to talk about fat soluble vitamins, vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin K. We're going to talk about their function, what bioavailability means. And that's basically absorption. How are the foods that you're intaking that contain these vitamins? If you have a deficiency, it could not necessarily be because you don't have enough of the vitamin. It could mostly be related to your body's ability to absorb that vitamin. We're going to be talking about the specific foods that the messenger of Allah gave to us, and that these foods actually have all of the vitamins and minerals that we need in order to keep ourselves healthy. So we're going to start with vitamin A, Sister Chantel. And I just want to share with our audience that these vitamins are so important. Every vitamin has a mineral counterpart, or a partner, if you will. And the partners work together in order to help one another to be absorbed in the body. For example, with the fat soluble vitamin A, zinc is its partner.
Yes.
And you can benefit from the vitamin A if you take it by itself. You can also benefit from the zinc if you take it by itself, but it's best if they work together. They go together like hand in glove. You know what I mean?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Um,
ma'am.
Vitamin A promotes vision by making sure and maintaining what we call that crystal clear outer window of the eyeball, which is basically called the cornea. And it converts light energy into nerve impulses in the retina. Isn't that's just
Yes,
fantastic how
yes.
mathematically precise our bodies are. And I get so nerdy and fascinated when I think about these teeny tiny little details that, of course, we're not the creator, but it's what the creator created for us
That's
in
right.
order to keep us alive, right?
That's
And
right.
those electrical impulses are transmitted to the brain.
Yes,
What
ma'am.
and that helps us to make sure that our bodies are regulated in the best way, you know? So
That's
tell
right.
us, what else does vitamin A do for us, Sister
Well,
Chantel?
well, I know. Oh, I was going into carrots, but because I know when you mentioned eyes, everyone probably started thinking about carrots. As we were growing up, our parents like eat your carrots. Help. Yes, ma'am. Um, well, from my research, vitamin A, that's what I've read. Pretty much good for eye health, actually,
Did you
and
know that
actually skin health.
yeah, yes. Yes, and that's why we have such a lot of commercials, television commercials, talking about retinol
Uh,
and all these different skin products and different things like that. But maybe we'll get into that later if we have time. But there
Yes,
are 5 different types of vitamin A. It has once it gets into the body, it's converted into retinol. It's converted into retinol. It's
yes,
converted into um, retoic acid, and they all have their own function. They have to, and they the functions that they perform are actually separate. They cannot share responsibility. In other words, it's
right.
kind of like you stay in your lane, and I'm going to stay in my lane, right?
That's
and
right.
I, and but you know what, life is like that too, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I
And,
know that vitamin A also supports reproduction. In males, it helps with the sperm count. With females, it helps with fetal development. It helps keep your immune system intact. It helps support the female when she's pregnant. And I know that it in babies and infants, if they have a vitamin D deficiency when they're born, they could actually go blind
and
over.
also
Go ahead.
with the relation. Okay, no, we're talking about things that's connected with one another. Vitamin A, like you said, pregnancy.
Hmm.
Couple that with folate. Now you have
Yes.
so if you're a married couple trying to conceive, you want to make sure you have plenty of vitamin A and folate to increase your chances of becoming pregnant.
Oh, yes, ma'am. That's good to know for other people because
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah.
my youngest is 29 years old. I don't think I want to go through that again, right? I hope y'all know that Sister Chantel and I have a good sense of humor, so y'all gotta laugh with us, okay? Um, Vitamin A is also good with protein synthesis and cell differentiation. Um, and one thing that I found fascinating is that vitamin A and vitamin D, for that matter, they're not only vitamins, but once they are synthesized in the body to do what they do, they also function as hormones.
Interesting.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
And at vitamin A as a hormone is it helps with gene expression. It helps maintain the integrity of epithelial cells and tissues, which is nothing more than like your skin is a big long organ of epithelial
Yes.
cells. But epithelial cells also are known for their stretchability. So
Okay.
your bladder, your urinary bladder is formed from epithelial cells. And your lungs, because they expand and contract, have epithelial cells. So the vitamin A in the form of retoric acid also helps to maintain these epithelial cells for those organs to make sure that your
Mhm.
body stays healthy and that everything functions in the way that it is. It helps with keeping away, I'm going to say, plaque buildup that's caused by excessive calcium and phosphorus. It flushes out your blood vessels, your artery walls, so that
Okay.
plaque won't build up. You know,
Yes.
I just love the
That's
way
interesting.
that God created our bodies, and I think that we all should be fascinated
Yes.
because go ahead, girl, because you know I'll get nerdy and stay up and stay and keep talking and talking and talking. But you the guest, so you are being commanded to share what it is that whatever that you had Allah has placed on your heart, so
Yes,
that you
ma'am.
can share that with us about vitamin A.
Well, I just like to reiterate about the vitamins. I know this is the season. A lot of people like to go to the stores and stock up on bottles of what they believe are vitamins. And
Okay.
I just want to remind people to like, always read the ingredient labels on any and everything that you consume. So before you purchase a product that you believe contains vitamins, you want to turn it over and read the ingredients. So I know we're speaking on vitamin A, but I'm jump over to vitamin C. If you pick up a bottle that says vitamin C, you turn it around and it says ascorbic acid, that's synthetic. You want to put it down. That synthetic vitamin C, ascorbic acid, has been known to harden the arteries and have been shown to cause heart attacks. And it does not, as Sister Anissa mentioned, it is not a bioavailable vitamin. It is synthetic. It is made from GMO corn. So we want to stay away from anything that, like from your conventional, I don't want to try not to name names, conventional stores. You want to go into your local natural health stores. Those would be your smaller stores. They're not going to be found nationwide. And look for organic whole food supplements. Organic whole food supplements. And that's where you're going to find bioavailable supplements that complement your body, or just purchase organic food or grow organic food.
Yes, ma'am. You know, one another thing that I found that was very interesting is that there's a lot of, let me put it this way, the phytochemical carotenoids, carotenoids rather. I always mispronounce that word the first time I say it. Vitamin A, foods that contain vitamin A have a
Yes,
high quality of carotenoids. You can identify these foods by their color. You know,
right.
again, not so that this network won't be sued. I'm going to borrow a term called taste the rainbow
Yes.
from whoever that was that manufactured Skittles. So foods that are orange and red in color have this
Hmm.
particular vitamin in it in a natural sense. You have your mangoes, you have your carrots, you have broccoli, you have spinach,
Hmm.
apricots, and cantaloupe. And I know that broccoli and spinach are not orange or yellow or red for that matter. However, those are the foods that the messenger gave us so that we can eat them. And
Yes.
I know that with a lot of the vitamins supplements that we have on in stores that we just buy off the shelf because they're popular, like Sister Chantel said, we do really need to be careful because a lot of the vitamins, um, I'm going to use vitamin D, which we're going to talk about a little later in this episode, as an example. You have vitamin D, you have vitamin D2, vitamin D3.
Yes.
And then there you the vitamin D3 for the most part, in some aspects, not all, are synthetically made, and they're for the use in animals because animals need the same types of vitamins that humans do in order for them to survive as well. And if you think about it, they eat the same thing we eat for the most part.
Yes.
So it makes sense. There is always a plant-based and an animal, a plant-based source to get particular vitamins, and also an animal-based source for people to get specific vitamins. And vitamin A is no different.
That's
Vitamin
right.
A is no different. And I know that also, if we're not mindful, we can create toxicity in our bodies
Hmm.
if we take too many or too little vitamins. And that's why you have the free right to request from your primary care provider to ask them to run a panel on you to make sure that you're not nutrient deficient. Okay. And it's not, they'll tell you that it's going to cost, but truthfully, it won't. It's not, no, she's laughing, but I've heard that before.
So
And
this
it's
is a test that that people can get done for free.
with their insurance, yes.
Okay.
Even if you receive Medi-Cal or Medicaid, you can still get that test done. They will, especially if you're taking, there are certain medications that deplete your body of certain vitamins and minerals, as we've mentioned before. And if you're taking those particular medications, then they should run a nutrient test on your blood to see how much of the nutrients or the vitamins and minerals are actually in your blood. There are several heart medications, for example, that will deplete your magnesium stores in your body. Vitamin A is especially important, beloved, because vitamin A, D, E, and K, because they're fat soluble vitamins, they're easily stored in your body and used when your body needs them. So they go to, so your body, Allah created our body so that vitamin A can be stored in the liver.
Yes.
And it's also stored in your kidneys. And that's where I'm going to say that's their starting point. Once they're metabolized, your body is going to call for certain levels of vitamin A or D or E or K. And then they're going to metabolize, and then they're going to send those vitamins and minerals to wherever they're needed. And then they're just going to sit. But your body does not store a lot of it, which especially vitamin D, which is why you have to go out in the sun and get it.
Hmm.
I recommend that we do, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has stated, and convert over into just eating vegetables and not eating meat as much as we do, because it really wreaks havoc on your digestive system. And a lot of us are not getting any younger.
Hmm.
And the older you get, your body metabolism, it slows down. But if you're really you live a sedimentary life, it's really going to
Yeah.
slow it way, 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 way down.
Yes. 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 And I would like to add to that as far as reducing or just removing the meat, primarily because one, we're not created to eat meat. Also, today the animals are pumped full of I don't know how many hormones. And they are, and a lot of the animals are sick. Some of them have cancer, and they're still allowed to go through into the food system. So we have to think about how is this affecting our health once we consume these products.
Yeah.
So,
And
mm,
I know that economically speaking, it may be in our best interest to do so, because I was in a grocer's the other day, sis, and eggs were $13 a dozen. $13 a dozen. And I know it's because of the quote unquote bird flu.
$13 a dozen? Was this
Yes.
a regular
Just
store or some type of
it
special
was
store?
it was a regular, it was a what they call a regular old store, and those were just regular old eggs. They were $13 a dozen.
Woo, my goodness.
I stood there, was it was a gentleman that was, we were going in, and we just stood there and just stared in, in disbelief.
You know, some stores do offer cartons of six. Did that store offer that? You can
They
buy
offered,
six.
no,
Okay.
I don't know about where you live, but
Yeah,
I
because
know
you
here
can.
it has to be whenever there's like a shortage or something, be it real or manufactured, they're not gonna have a lot of stuff that's on sale. Like
Right.
for example, we need butter because there's a lot of vitamin A and D in butter. And
Yes.
a lot of people don't understand that. And of course, they say you need to cut down on your cholesterol and this, that, and the other. But if you're eating the right proportions of vitamins A and D and E and K and eating foods that are good for you,
Yes.
then the likelihood of plaque buildup, which could happen if you're
Right.
not mindful of your diet. But vitamin A, again, helps to regulate that and flush those fatty
Yes.
deposits out of your arterial walls.
Correct.
But stores very seldom put anything like that on sale, dear sister, unless it's coming off of it because butter was up to $10 for a pound of butter.
Eh, Okay. I was in the store the other day. It's a national store, um, primarily organic, and their egg section, it was completely empty. They just removed all the eggs. And the butter, I did not price the butter only because all it is heavy whipping cream. Just purchase heavy whipping cream, pour it in your blender, pulse it, and squeeze it through a cheesecloth, and you got butter.
Say that recipe one more time so our listening audience can get it so that they'll know that they can make their own butter. Yes?
Yes, ma'am. It
Tell them
takes
one more time, sis.
the process, the whole process takes at least 5 minutes at that. So you're gonna take heavy whipping cream, you pour it into your blender, and you're gonna pulse it on a low pulse until it thickens. Once it thickens, you scrape it into a cheesecloth. You're gonna squeeze the excess liquid, which is the whey. You're gonna squeeze that out, pour it into a container that you're gonna solidify it in, put it into your refrigerator. And if you want, you can add herbs to it, you can add salt to it, or you don't have to add anything. And just put it in the refrigerator.
Did y'all hear that? You're getting so much information from Money My Mind
And
with your
I just
host,
made yogurt.
Lisa Muhammad, and your guest, our guest star, I'm going to call her,
uh,
Sister Chantel
yeah,
Muhammad.
yeah. These prices will motivate you to start making. I just made yogurt.
Girl, sometimes I just stand in the dairy section looking at half and half because I put that in my coffee and I look at the butter and it's like, hey, y'all want to go half on a cow? I mean, because we can you imagine that they used to in a long, they've banned having animals in cities
Right. Some cities they do have codes where, even if you wanted a chickens for eggs or, some cities allow it, some don't.
because they say that it's unsanitary. But in the Wild Wild West, I don't recall a whole lot of people dying because they had chickens in their yard. So
It,
you have a lot of wasted, beautifully manicured lawns, and
hmm
the grass is so beautiful and so plush. And you could use that space to grow food. And
Yes.
a lot of homeowners don't utilize it like that. Well, let's stop the
Yeah.
small talk and talk about vitamin D.
Yes, ma'am.
you know because yes, vitamin D I'm learning more about because I've been told by my provider that I have a vitamin D deficiency. I took special interest in this particular vitamin because while in my patient portal, say if there's a scale of 1 to 10 and they say that 8 is where you should be, I might have been like around 5.
Okay.
The first thing I was prescribed was the plant based vitamin D, which is ergocalciferol. I was prescribed that to take once a week, every week, preferably on the same day. But when I started taking it, I would take it like on a Wednesday. That was my target because that was my least favorite day. And it increased the likelihood that I would remember to take it. But I noticed that by Friday, like clockwork,
Hmm.
I would start feeling weird. My chest would start hurting. I would get, heart palpitations really bad. And I just general malaise. I just didn't feel like me.
Yeah.
And that happened for about 3 weeks. And I said, you know what? This only happens on Friday. And then I thought a little
Hmm.
deeper and I said, but it started happening when I started taking that vitamin D. So just experimenting, I stopped taking it and then those symptoms went away. He prescribed 50,000 IUs, 50,000,
Hmm.
which according to what I've seen and just perusing some of the research studies, that's average or that's normal
Right.
to prescribe that level of IUs for someone with a vitamin D deficiency. So when
Hmm.
I told that to my doctor, they prescribed the cholecalciferol, which is vitamin D3 and of animal origin. That went down to like 2,500 IUs. And the side effects were the same. And I would take it, I think I was to take it every day, and the side effects were the same. So the conclusion that I came up with for me
Yes.
is that you need to go sit in the sun, you need to
Hmm.
walk more.
Hmm.
And I don't know, let me put it this way. I can't say I don't like milk, but I have to find one that has a higher level of vitamin D in it.
Okay.
And I don't like cottage cheese. I feel about cottage cheese the way you do that blackstrap molasses. So
Yeah, yeah, cottage
I
cheese
am
makes me
not
angry also. Yeah,
huh?
I I get angry about cottage cheese too. So no,
I don't. Mm-mm. So we here, right? So you
yeah,
understand,
we're
and
not
that
doing
is
cottage cheese.
no, ma'am. I'm not doing that. So I may have to end up
Oh no,
making
don't
my
worry.
own yogurt,
Hmm. It's
and
so
I
I
may,
can't believe how easy it is. I cannot. I'm like, that's it. So,
yeah. Did you
it's
add
so easy,
fruit? Well,
ma'am.
we're gonna have to create and make our own. Brother Minister Ishmael said this
Mhm.
past Sunday in his address that what should be on our mind the most is survival.
Yep.
He said that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So it's not just about this disaster preparedness or survival preparedness anymore. They're actually, and I'm creating this, but I saw it. There are 6 categories of survival. You got food, you got shelter, you have sanitation, you have security. You know,
Yes.
there's a lot that goes into you one being on survival mode. And
Correct.
so now we are going to have to broaden our horizons a little bit more because Brother Minister Ishmael has also been talking a lot about unity is the key to our survival.
Yes.
So we're going to have to unite together as a family because we don't have anything other than Allah and ourselves to
That's right.
depend on, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So
And
how does this vitamin D fit into your life? And tell us a little bit of whatever it is that you know about the foods that contain vitamin D. What's the best source of vitamin D? Um, how does your body process it? What is it good for?
well,
What's
I
its
know.
mineral partner?
Well, we have discussed butter. Butter is a great source of vitamin D.
Mm-hmm.
Milk. Um, anything like animal-based products, basically. For me. Since I'm vegetarian, I'm not vegan, vegetarian, it would be milk and butter, and also some cheese.
I'm sorry, did
And
you
at
say TEA?
cheese, cheese,
Cheese. Okay.
yes, ma'am. And also the Garden of Life. That's a brand that I use for vitamin D. They formulate GMO free whole food supplements. So
You
we're
said Garden
talking
of Life?
Garden of Life, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So, and they're highly to live compliant, so they don't do any soy or anything like that. And zinc, everything is raw and everything is food based. So you can get your zinc, your vitamin D, your vitamin C, anything you could think, any vitamin they do provide within it is highly to live compliant.
Yes, ma'am. I like how you say that it's how to eat to live compliant. So that the way that that sounds is like we had to go check with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to see if it was okay for us to do this. That's what that sounds. And
And we
I'm
did.
not
How do
and
we
I'm not
check it
mad at
with looking at how to eat to live first before purchasing? We have to go check with them first.
it. And you're absolutely right, dear sister. Plants are not a good source of vitamin D. You either gonna have to get it from an animal source or directly from the sun.
Right.
And
And, mhm.
the sunlight helps to convert the vitamin D that's already in your body into a usable form. The animal sources or good sources of vitamin D are my favorite, my personal favorite, which is salmon. You can get it also from your personal favorite, butter,
Yeah.
butter and yogurt. You can also get it from eggs,
Yes.
the egg
And
yolk.
and also being out in the sun, like you said, definitely, definitely. But I want to reiterate those of us that's modest, we're not going to be out sunbathing in bikinis or shorts or anything that's showing our skin when we're out in the public. We are going to have some clothing on. And the type of material or fabric that we're wearing, that does play a role in
It
how
does. The
and
deficiency.
the absorption of the
Mhm.
vitamin D. So if we're wearing, excuse me, if we're wearing clothing that may be like a hemp or organic cotton, but we're washing them in chemicals, we're defeating the purpose. Or if we're wearing polyester, things of that nature, also defeating the purpose.
You know what I do? I have like I'm gonna call them tank tops, but they're short and they come to the shoulder. Here,
Yes.
they're cut off at the shoulder, and I have calculated the time of day where I can sit out in the front on the stoop and be sitting and sit directly in the sun
Hmm.
because it's positioned of the way that is positioned in the sky. And at
Yes.
that time of day, which is usually at 11 in the morning, between 11 and 11:45,
Oh, okay.
there's nobody outside because mostly everybody is, if they work, they're at work. If they don't, they're already gone or they're sitting inside.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's the best time of day for me to go. And I will at least be able to absorb it. And I turn to where it's going directly on my face. And then I sit and I change positions to where that is going to be on my arms and directly on my face and neck.
Yes.
Because you're right, because we're covered and because of the types of fabrics that we wear,
Hmm.
we are not able to actually absorb the UV rays from the sun that will help us to be able to absorb that good vitamin D from the sun.
Right.
So I want to ask you your professional opinion. And I know that vitamin D was never a problem when I was growing up. It was a natural source of milk. We played outside all the time in the sun.
Hmm.
And Do you think that there's a correlation between vitamin D deficiencies and the advent of reduced fat, no fat, and low fat milk? Because don't forget, vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin. And when they homogenize the milk and pasteurize it, the milk fat gets lost and is not
Right.
readily available like it was when you just milk a cow and then the
Right.
dairies put it in a bottle, the cream will rise to the top. That doesn't exist anymore. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a great correlation. That's true because now, like you said, you're in the dairy section, you're in the milk section, and you have all these different options. You're like, just where the whole milk at? So, and now even with that, when you look at your milk on the front, it's gonna have D3 on it. And
Or D2, I've seen both of
or
those.
right, so it's like, so why? Why is that? So when I looked it up to see what is it that they added, the D3 was from sheep wool. That was vitamin D3 that they say that they obtained somehow from sheep's wool to put into the milk. And so, yes, I do believe
I'm sorry,
that
people
just don't
that
even
are viewing, I can't even imagine what my face looked like right then, but I'm sorry. That does not sit well with Sister Anissa. I'm so sorry.
oh, you think that's all
Uh-uh.
I got is
No, ma'am.
it's so much stuff that these people do. Vanilla extract, that's all I'm gonna say. Look up vanilla extract.
Mm-mm. Don't y'all do that. Y'all will never eat another cookie, cake, or pie ever in life. Yeah, or either that, or you would decide to go ahead and spend that $25 on a bottle of pure vanilla extract that's about this big.
Exactly. These people will come up with all kind of stuff. So
They
yeah,
do. Oh my God. Okay, so fortunately for you all, our listening audience, we're not talking about where vanilla extract come from, or
no,
vanilla flavoring, artificial or imitation
that's
vanilla.
right.
That's no, we're not going to talk about that. I don't think I'll ever cover that topic on here because no, I'm sorry. I have to add some levity to this because
Yeah, we're not doing that.
when, when you think about what is happening to our food, you will understand why we're getting so sick.
hmm
It
You
brings
know,
new meaning to that song, Killing Me Softly, because that's exactly
yes.
what's happening to us. Is that the manipulation
hmm
and the alterations that are happening in our food supply is literally killing us, because if something was happening and they discovered, oh, this worked well on rats,
Right.
it worked well on gophers and guinea pigs, they
hmm
decide, the ubiquitous, they decide that it might be okay to work in humans. Now I'm gonna put my public health headpiece on right now.
hmm
When they go into the labs and do this research, they see and they know that, okay, this theory, theoretically, this is working. We're looking at it work well on the animals that we're experimenting on, but they cannot experiment on humans.
Well,
So they say,
before before COVID, here in Chicago,
mm-hmm,
every year, the Research and Development Department will have this massive convention, the Food and Technology Convention. I would attend these
okay,
conventions, and it was so far down the line. It was about 2016, 2017 at one of the conventions. This is, oh, and if you ever attend one of these conventions, you definitely want to fast that day. Do not eat anything at these conventions. Um, there were chefs.
wow.
There were chefs, like like we see on TV or at restaurants, and they were frying up quote unquote food. People were lined up. to taste this quote unquote food. Um, One particular convention, they were introducing the new protein, and the new protein was your household cockroach. They were saying that was going to be the new protein. Fast forward to today, there's yeah, there's talk of these things being introduced into the market today. So yeah, they
But you
do.
know
I know I was there several
that is
times.
gross to think about that, but it doesn't surprise me because when I was about 8, 9, 10 years old, they were eating chocolate covered ants, chocolate
Hmm.
covered roaches, and chocolate covered grasshoppers, and they were saying that it was a delicacy.
Yes,
But they
yes,
weren't saying that it was a form of protein. So,
right,
I'm
right.
gonna put that right there. I'm gonna put a pin in that, and then I'm gonna file it away
So yes,
under you for yuck yuck. Okay,
yeah,
so
yeah.
no, ma'am.
So
Um,
I always
I,
fasted
I
that
just
day.
wanted to talk to talk a little bit about how vitamin D is processed in the body. Number one, when vitamin D is absorbed in the body, it helps the uptake or the bioavailability of calcium. They go hand in hand. Vitamin
Yes,
D, the mineral, and the minerals calcium and phosphorus. They're
yes,
like triplets, and they feed off of one another. They need one another. Our bodies need all three of them in order for them to function properly. And when it's synthesized in the skin, it is stored in the liver first, and then there's another aspect of the processing of vitamin D that takes place in the kidneys.
hmm,
And calcitrol is the active form of vitamin D, and it's responsible for the physiological effects of that controls the body's needs, like making sure that vitamin is stored for proper kidney function. It regulates the calcium and phosphorus levels. And vitamin D, when it's metabolized in a healthy or semi-healthy body, it helps with your body metabolism. And
yes,
that's something that's kind of new because I didn't know that it contributes to muscle and nerves, and it plays a role in the mineralization and bone formation in our bodies, and that's where the absorption and bioavailability of calcium and phosphorus and why it's so important. Calcium and phosphorus and vitamin D is basically essential for the regulation of our blood flow. Now, that one I did not know.
I did not know that. I just my mind just automatically went to pregnant women and babies
Mm-hmm.
because you'll find, and as you know professionally, there's so many babies being born with jaundice, lack of vitamin D. And so they have to stay in the NICU under that light until their bilirubin is at a certain number. And then at one point, there were a lot of children being born with rickets. And I don't know, I haven't really looked into it, but somehow they've gotten that under control.
And that's a vitamin. That's what happens when you have a severe vitamin D deficiency. I
Correct.
know that calcium is important for proper parathyroid function, and vitamin D as a hormone and its production of enzymes in the kidneys actually turn the enzyme and stimulates the conversion of inactive vitamin A into an active form. I'm sorry, vitamin D into an active form of vitamin D. And then that's how calcium and phosphorus levels increase in the blood supply. And if the kidneys processes of, or let me backtrack. If there's not enough vitamin D in the kidneys, then you lose calcium and phosphorus by way of a lot of the urine that's excreted in the urine.
Okay.
And but it's responsible to increase the levels of calcitrol from the parathyroid gland. And I mean, it's complicated, but it's very interesting. And another thing I did not know about vitamin D and calcium is that it helps with the genomic function, your gene productions and
Yes.
making sure your DNA stays intact. I
Wow.
mean, the magnificent, teeny tiny little details of certain vitamins and stuff that we don't even know about. There are actual receptors in our bodies. And protein is important because it's used as a transport vehicle on a cellular level in our bodies. So you got vitamins and minerals hitching a ride to certain cells on a protein transport vehicle,
Right.
so to speak, which is little microscopic molecules in our bodies. And research indicates that the vitamin D receptors that are ID in tumor cells, it stimulates the growth of higher concentrations, and vitamin D can inhibit the growth of certain tumors on a cellular level.
That's
Vitamin D,
interesting.
like calcium and phosphorus, is actually, I'm going to say, broken down in the gut. And that's why they're talking a lot about gut health nowadays, right?
They
Because
are.
it's processed in the gut, and then it goes is in the gut. While we say gut, we're talking about the small intestines, because of the function of your large intestines is to reabsorb water and get rid of waste. That's what your large intestine is for. That's
Well,
why huh?
I think that's interesting that you brought that up because right now, as we speak, there's some virus that's been unleashed onto the public that that's attacking the gut. Norovirus. That's a
The who virus?
norovirus, and then there's another one that's attacking the gut. They say that it's primarily in China right now. I don't personally believe that. I believe it's everywhere. But right here in the United States, they're claiming that they are owning up to the norovirus that's going around right now. Primarily here in the Midwest, I'm assuming. But
Wow.
and it attacks the gut. Yes. Yeah.
Wow. So when they say protect your gut, remember the book that we have, Metabolic? No, Metadiabolic? And that all through that book, he says, protect your liver and your gut. That's the author's mantra. Because without your liver, you cannot live. If your liver malfunctions, it kind of destroys the process of digestion, because everything that we put in our mouth that goes into our stomach, somehow or another, at some point, is going to go through your liver.
That's right. And you know, as Black people, how many of us are on that organ list as a patient or a donor? So
I shudder to think that's something that I have never looked into, but I'm quite sure
very low.
that that list is very long for everyone that needs a liver.
Yeah,
And I know that according to the report that the Surgeon General, or should I say the advisory that the Surgeon General just mentioned, for 2025, that the liver cancer is one of the preventable cancers. And we destroy our liver by what we eat and what we drink. Alcohol is not the only thing that can destroy your
no.
liver.
When I
Fast
visited
food. That's why the messenger told us not to eat a lot of fried foods, because
that's
that fat
right.
will be stored in your liver.
That's right, because when I visit the medical examiner's office and I held a liver, it was so rubbery. we were able to bounce it off the table, and
Get
the
out.
medical examiner told me that the person did not drink alcohol. This was from fried food.
Oh my. Oh
Yeah,
my. The liver is one, other than the heart, I think the liver is one of the most highly vascular organs in our body. And that's why a lot of times when people develop tumors, hemangiomas, and cancer, a lot of times they don't want to put you on chemo and they will not operate because more than likely before they get it all, you'll bleed out. Without your liver, you cannot live.
right.
Um, let's talk a little bit about vitamin E,
Yes.
dear sister. I don't know a whole lot about vitamin E other than the fact that I know that you have, it's called toco, tocopherol, right? Am I
I,
right?
and we're gonna go with that. Yes.
It's spelled
CO.
Tocoferol.
Right.
And it's from the Greek tokos, that means childbirth. And I know that that's a vitamin that they encourage for, fertility clinics may encourage women to take if they would, if they're caring to become pregnant in the future. And I know that deficiencies, my apologies, I was reading the wrong thing. It is definitely, it traps for free radicals. Vitamin E does. It traps radicals, free radicals, and antioxidant, and it has antioxidant effects on cell membranes. So vitamin E is extremely good for helping us to fight certain illnesses and diseases. Um,
And
I'm not. Go ahead.
I know most women may be familiar with vitamin E because of its benefits for skin, hair, nails, things of that nature.
They do.
Yeah.
I know that it helps with metabolism. It helps. It's a chemical process, and it helps to modify your DNA and other molecules, and it plays a role in of the transmission of life, meaning that vitamin E plays a big role in fetal development.
Hmm.
It plays a big role in keeping sperm and ovum healthy. And no, none of these fat soluble vitamins should be slighted. I'm going to use that word. I like that
Right.
word right now
Right.
because they all go together like this, and one helps the other. However, I'm not sure what the mineral partner is to vitamin E.
Vitamin A.
That's another vitamin. I said the
The
mineral.
minimal partner. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
know. But if you see the correlation with all the vitamins that you mentioned this evening, they all play a major part in reproductive health.
Yes, ma'am. They do, huh?
Yes,
In some form or another,
that's right.
they play. And vitamin E is one of those vitamins that you don't have to worry too much about toxicity. I'm not saying go to a store and buy some vitamin E supplements and just chug them down and think there's nothing that's going to happen to you. That's not what I'm saying. I'm
Right.
saying that it does not have the same effects that other vitamins will. For example, with vitamin D, you lose your appetite if you have too much vitamin D in your body.
Hmm.
It results in weight loss. It increases urine production. It causes irregular heartbeat, and it increases the calcium levels in your blood. You don't have that problem with vitamin E. Oh, and my personal favorite, remember, I think we were talking last week about this vitamin K and why
Yes.
babies are mandated. I think it's out here. I don't know what is going on in Illinois, but I know that I did ask this question in my classroom discussion. They didn't really give me a good answer. They just routed me to a A, meaning one,
Hmm.
article that was in on the National Library of Medicine, and I didn't think it didn't answer my question sufficiently, because I know that in chickens, here we go with experimenting with animals again. In chickens, when chickens are born, they see that they have an aggregated amount of platelets or something of that nature, and then they will start to hemorrhage. But they notice that when vitamin K is present, that the hemorrhaging stops. So they figured then maybe this would be good for children too. And it's like, okay, so did y'all look to see if children that were being born and they had an aggregate amount of blood, of platelets in their blood, and then they started hemorrhaging? They didn't do that.
No.
Well, maybe they did and we don't know. But I know that it doesn't make any logical sense to me. And I'm sorry, for those of you who are listening, the question that I raised was, what is the likelihood of an infant falling from a height high enough when they're not able to move around on their own? And if they fall, what is the likelihood that there's going to be skin breakage to the point to where they're going to need something to help them coagulate their blood? Because if the baby is healthy, the prothrombin time is going to start immediately clotting that blood and closing up the site, unless that child has a blood illness called hemophilia, which I
Hmm.
think doesn't even exist anymore.
Sounds like your question is along the lines of people asking basically the same question about babies. Why would my baby need a tetanus shot? How can my baby step on a nail? You know? So
And if they say something like, it's just a precautionary measure, okay, thank you. I'll just make sure that they don't get stepped on. I'll make sure that nobody holds them that's not in their right mind, and more than likely will probably cause my baby to fall. I'll make sure, because they say that once they hit 3 to 6 months, their bodies are able to produce what's necessary in order for their blood to clot.
right. Especially if they were nursed primarily.
But studies do indicate that breast milk does not have enough
I
vitamin K
read
in it. But
I
I have
read that.
in God, and
I
his,
yeah,
you mean to tell me a God that's so magnificently detail oriented that he didn't give the mother enough vitamins to maintain her infant? If he put in that breast milk something that can hold that baby's immune system and keep it intact
hmm
till it's at least 2 years old, didn't think far enough in advance to provide something to help blood to clot in an infant that's newborn, I'm sorry, I don't serve that kind of God.
you
That
know,
doesn't make it's not, it doesn't make any logical sense to
it
me,
doesn't
sis.
make any
That's all
logical
I'm
sense.
saying. Huh?
And, and and also, next time you talk to your peers, ask them this question. Before Rockefeller came and took over the whole medical system, when we were natural, we dealt with midwives and doulas, and we dealt with herbs. There were more mothers, there was more maternal mortality than it was infant mortality back then. How make it make sense? There was no vitamin K injections or eye drops. It didn't happen. And those babies grew up to be healthy adults.
But you know, sis, a lot of people don't know that Rockefeller took over the medical industry. They don't. They really don't. I don't know. Maybe they think it came out of a cabbage patch. It just popped up from out anywhere. However, I know that the current healthcare system as we know it is actually an offshoot of the United States Public Health Service
Hmm.
that was developed in, I think, 1878. And that came out of the U.S. Navy.
Interesting.
So the
Hmm.
public, I mean, or rather, the medical health system as we know actually came out of the public health system because when this country, it's like when there were a lot of immigrants around the mid 1800s or so,
Right.
when people came here, they did not have plumbing, they did not have sanitation.
No.
Every, illness, they didn't have hospitals. They had a couple of little places where people can go, but that was before the advent of hospital systems. They didn't even know what antibiotics was in this country at that time. So if a
Right.
person got an infection or they had a very bad wound or something of that nature, then the only thing that they can do was make them bite down on a stick, give them some whiskey and try to cut it out.
That's right.
It's that's why I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. That's why it was a shock to me that when COVID came, it became a medical issue and not a public health issue. It was a public health issue, and that's how and why the medical system failed the people. It was. And I know that I am very happy, ecstatic that we are blessed to have those two books called How to Eat to Live. Because the more I study, the more of the wisdom that's in those books in so simple terms, so easy to understand terms. And I'm glad that Allah created me to have the inquisitive mind where I just got to always know why to everything. I don't sometimes that even I get on my own nerves with
Well, we're
I
being
do.
told things
Because
when we're
it's
being
like,
told
why
things.
is that
Oh,
bothering me? I just got to know why. And it's like, okay, so I understand he said, eat this, 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 and this. He told us on so many different levels, there are so many different things, but especially how to eat to live. He gave us the what.
yep.
It's our job to find out the why and
That's
teach our
right.
people
That's right.
why he prescribed that because much of what is written in both those books is prophetic, I think,
Yes.
because a lot of what he was speaking into did not exist when those books were published. It's like he saw it coming. He did.
Well, How to Live at the very top says from God
God
and person,
himself,
Master Farah
Master
Muhammad.
Fard Muhammad. And are we blessed to be still living, still here in this day and time? And I pray Allah that a lot of our millennial parents listen and hear what their grandparents, and if they're fortunate enough to have their great grandparents still here, if they tell you that eggs don't taste the same, you better believe them. If they're
Right.
telling you that cucumbers and tomatoes don't taste the same, believe them. If they're telling you that beef and chicken don't taste the same, believe them.
Hmm.
They've been here long enough to know that there is something different. Oh, and by the way, just because it's cage free don't mean that it's okay.
That's right. Thank you.
I'm sorry. That was something that just popped in one of those things that popped in my head.
Yeah,
It doesn't mean that that chicken is going to produce healthier eggs. It just means that they're free to roam about in 2 square inches of space because they're
that's
still
right.
in a crowded atmosphere and in a crowded environment.
Yes,
And the
yes.
Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that even if you have chickens, you have to cage them to
Hmm.
keep them because a chicken will eat anything, he says.
Anything.
And if you don't control the space that they roam around in, they will eat anything, and then you'll be eating anything, which may not be healthy for you.
That's right.
So it's so much that we can cover in these. I'm going to let this medical disclaimer run one more time before we close out, Sister Chantel.
Hmm.
But it's
Yes,
so
ma'am.
much that we can cover and uncover and discover about the benefit of vitamins, and most importantly, the benefit of why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told us to eat certain foods. He prescribed for
That's
us
right.
cabbage and broccoli,
Yes,
rhubarb. Told us not to eat collard greens and mustard greens and things of that nature because it's too hard on the digestive system.
he told us not to
He
eat
said we
kales.
can eat all the garlic and onions that we want to eat.
Yep,
He said it's okay to eat white corn. He said it's okay for us to eat Brussels sprouts and eat all fruit in its raw state. He taught
hmm
us not to cook our food too long because if we do, we'll be cooking all of the nutrients out of it. So even if you got your favorite restaurant or your favorite eatery that you go to, the next time you look at that menu, I want you to ask yourself, where did they get their food from that you're getting ready to eat?
that's right.
I am not trying to throw shade at anybody. I want you to think, because the life you save just might be your own. Brothers and sisters, we're going to close out our show today. You all right? You got anything to add, Sister Chantel?
I think this was a wonderful show. Thank you for having
Oh,
me.
well, thank you. Next week, we're just going to dive into the B complex vitamins. And we're going to find out and we're going to learn why they call the B complex system
Yeah,
cofactors of one another. Because unlike vitamin A, all the B vitamins, they work together to serve a common purpose. And that is to make sure that your body on a cellular level is able to do what it's supposed to do to keep this entire organism alive. You got B1, B2, B3. You got folate, you got B5, you got B6, B7, B9, which is the same as folate, and B12. And they all do something similar but different at the same time on a cellular level. And it, to
it,
me, I mean, and we have to hit, because starting next week with the B vitamins, we're going to go into the water soluble vitamins. And that's why if you're taking a multivitamin, that's why you urinate a lot, because water soluble vitamins leave the body. They're excreted from the body through your urine, and
yeah,
you will urinate a lot when you're taking them, but that's not a bad thing, because if
I-
your body did not urinate those water soluble vitamins out, toxicity would set in,
that's right.
and that's
And
not
see,
a good thing.
and
Huh?
with this knowledge we're imparting, you're gonna learn that you don't need that microwave. You don't need that air fryer because those things they may seem convenient, but they're not. They're killing everything. Just left with the taste of whatever you put into those things.
It's just, I have one. It was gifted to me. I haven't used it yet.
Which one? Air fryer or microwave?
A air fryer.
Okay.
I have not yet used it. But when people became knowledgeable of how grease and oil was not good for them health wise, they had to create something so that we can still eat fried stuff. And so here you come with an air fryer. And I think it's the word fry that sells it. It's the
Yeah,
word fry.
the word
It's like,
fry.
oh, I can still have some French fries. I'm sorry. But if I'm gonna eat some French fries, they're gonna be fried in some good old fashioned grease. I'm just saying that's me. I'm not saying that is, but if I was going to eat some fries, I would much rather have them fried in some grease the good old fashioned way. Not that I'm
That
gonna eat that, but I'm just saying.
is that like that 50% less fat Lay's like that.
Yeah. You know, to me, it's kind of like non-fat, non-fat cake, or cake, fat-free cake,
What?
sugar-free cake. It's like, really, what's
Oh,
the
oh
point of
no.
the cake? I hope y'all know when we just joking around, right? Sister Chantel is so mindful of what y'all just don't, y'all don't know her like I do. She, this is
Oh,
hilarious, but we're very, very serious. And I want to thank you all so much for tuning in to Minding My Mind broadcast on the Closing the Gap Broadcast Network. Thank you all so much. See you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel, 6:30. Deuces. Love you, Sister Chantel. You all have a
love you
wonderful
too.
evening. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.